the power of Mahasaraswati. I really feel like we are all children of Mahasaraswati who's been super patient with us and who's really shaping us, molding us, making us with her loving, nurturing hand, who's leading us towards a growing perfection of our nature into the image of who we truly are. So at the lotus feet of Mahasaraswati, concentrating in our hearts, we begin the reading. Mahasaraswati is the mother's power of work. Mahasaraswati is the mother's power of work and her spirit of perfection and order. The youngest of the four, she is the most skillful in executive faculty and nearest to the physical nature. So, she is mother's power of work. Now, imagine, very practically speaking, Maheshwari has laid out these larger vision and larger lines of manifestation. Mahakali is the one who's striving and giving us the strength to move forward on the path. Mahalakshmi brings that sweetness and delight and rhythm and harmony at work. But ultimately, it has to be all translated into actual hands-on detailed work in which in every little detail has to be the presence of the divine. Be it the detail in terms of our body, in terms of each and every cell of our body, or be it the detail in each and every detail of whatever work that we do. If we do cooking, for instance, then within cooking itself, a whole different world opens up when you aspire from all your heart and with a sense of love to do it perfectly. Now, there is a difference between, there are three kinds of perfection. One is an unhealed perfection, which is when, probably because you were micromanaged as a child, so now you have an incessant need for perfection because of which you're not able to get into action. It's a bit ironical because your need for perfection is what becomes a boulder and a barrier for you to experience perfection. The second is a kind of a perfection that you feel others demand out of me. It's not something that I want to do. So I work in a company where the boss is demanding perfection. It is his need. I go to a college or a school or an institute where the teacher demands perfection. It is her living need and not really mine. But the third demand for perfection is the demand for perfection that comes from our souls, which wishes to express love in the form of work. And because it wishes to express love in the form of work, it wants to do it as perfectly as possible. It's a bit like when you make birthday gift for your best friend. Or better still, the first time you fall in love and you want to gift something to your beloved. You want it perfect. Every little detail should be perfect, no? So just like that, if we were to do our everyday life work with that kind of love in which work becomes worship, that is when we begin to open to this power, the power of Mahasaraswati. For me, Mahasaraswati in particular reminds me of Sachin Tendulkar. I happened to watch his documentary and it really brought tears to my eyes, the way he treated cricket. For him, really going to a match field was his temple, was his place of worship. So really, when we say work is worship, and I saw a video of him washing his bat. And it was really very, very similar to, how in temples we have steps to wash the god. It's like, how you do prana pratishtha, and it's a simple, murti. It's a simple physical appearance, a simple idol. But once we invoke God in that simple murti, the God begins to appear in that simple physical matter. And that's what I really saw him doing it with his bat. It was not just, the bat was not just an idol that he put in a sacred space, but something that he worked with on an everyday basis. And he truly, truly invoked the Godhead into his bat. So truly, when work becomes worship, when there is a labor of love, that is when we begin to open to the force of Mahasaraswati. So she is mother's power of work, because ultimately all forces have to come together and manifest themselves into detailed work. And her spirit of perfection and order. And notice the other word here, which is order. So on one hand, she is the mother who helps us bring perfection at work, but also she is the mother who brings an orderliness in the working environment. So when it comes to planning of work, there's a beautiful flower given by the mother, which is called a perfect planning of work. So she is the one who enables a perfect planning of work. She is also the power that enables, when in a library, books are very beautifully classified, right? There is such a joy when you see that kind of a detail. So one is the element of perfection. The other is also the element of orderliness that she brings at work. The youngest of the four, she is the most skillful in executive faculty. So she is really the most skillful. There is magic in her hands. She is the executionary power of the divine Lord. So she is the most skillful in executive faculty. Now, if anything has to be manifested on earth, you can have a big vision, a big dream, you can have immensity of power, immensity of drive, you can have immensity of skillfulness in organizing everything, but at the end of the day, the work has to be translated into little details. Nowadays, a lot of that is being done by AI. But even in AI, what is it that we are feeding? And are we paying attention to the details and the consciousness behind it? Ultimately, it has to be in its details and in every little detail. And that is one of the ways in which Mother always described the new creation. In the new creation, each and every pulse, each and every cell will be full of light and full of the presence of the divine, which means the difference that we have today between inner and outer will go away. Today we can get away with saying that, I am sincere at work, but my work is not perfect. Inside of me, I have sincerity, but outside of me, I still struggle to make my work perfect. But more and more, as we invoke the power of Mahasaraswati, that inner sincerity will automatically and spontaneously begin to reflect in our outer work, more and more that we become instruments of Mahasaraswati. And she is the nearest to physical nature. That's also an important point. She is the nearest to physical nature. So she is very, very near to the physical manifestation of things, to the very concrete, solid, material manifestation of things, be it in the form of gardens, be it in the form of architecture, be it in the form of detailed book writing, be it in the form of any concrete form. Any idea, when it begins to take concrete form, it absolutely cannot happen if in some part of being we are not receptive to Mahasaraswati. It is because of her presence that we are able to be skillful and detailed oriented in our work. Now, Maheshwari lays down the larger lines of the world forces. Mahakali drives their energy and impetus. Mahalakshmi discovers the rhythms and the measures. But Mahasaraswati presides over their detail of organization and execution, relations of parts, an effective combination of forces, and an unfailing exactitude of result and fulfillment. What a beautiful and detailed kind of description. If in a very practical way, if I have to explain this to you, if you look at any organization, it will have advisors. It will have people who had an idea, who had a vision. And then it will have people who took up that idea and have big dreams to make a big impact using that idea to actually manifest. And after that, there will be people who will arrange and organize works, who will set up the different systems and processes and departments at work. And finally, there will be people who will actually organize works, who will actually do the work in its very details. So the first group of people are receptive to Maheshwari. They came up with the idea, they came up with the vision. The second group of people are receptive to Mahakali. They are the ones who are driving things and showing the courage and making progress. The third group of people are open to the force of Mahalakshmi. They are the ones, who are setting the rhythms of the entire work to be done. And ultimately, people who actually do the work in detail, they are the ones who are open to Mahasaraswati. And she is the one who gives us detail in organization and execution, relation of parts, and effective combination of forces. Right? So there is some kind of a harmonization happening even at this level. So she knows what is the relations between different parts. At work, she knows how is each person's full potential to be used. What is the relationship between different objects? For instance, if one is coding, right? Coding is not just a linear step-by-step process. You have to understand the relationship between UI, UX, between the code that you're writing, between so many other things. And she is the one who brings that exactitude of practical knowledge of the relationship between different parts. Similarly, in cooking also, if you don't know the relationship between smell, texture, presentation, visuals, then you will not be able to create a perfect holistic experience. For instance, if you just focus on taste, you're likely to create a very rajasic food and not a very wholesome meal, right? But only if you have your attention into the different parts that together go into cooking, that together go into that entire experience of cooking and eating, will you be able to create a certain perfection at work. So relations between different parts, their effective combination of forces, and an unfailing exactitude of result and fulfillment. Now that is another this thing, the fact that many times we thinking about results as an unspiritual activity. It's one of the major misconceptions and misinterpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has said, don't worry about the results, don't worry about the outcome. But that don't worry about the result or don't worry about the outcome is coming from the fact that we tend to be, as human beings, very anxious. What will happen? Will it work? Will it not work? And we can only, most of the time, give ourselves when we are rest assured that this is going to work. So from that perspective, Krishna said, you don't have to worry. You have to leave it in the hands of God, how it will work and in which way it will work, because many times our minds cannot understand the way the divine leaps and the divine makes progress. Many times what we are interpreting as failure is a big leap from the perspective of the divine. So from that angle, not to worry about results. However, if one has to make anything beautiful and perfect, anybody who's doing any work which is worthy, which has any sense of perfection in it, will tell you that I keep first in my mind which is the result where I want to reach, and then I make it work backwards. So yes, this is the part of the Divine Mother that gives us an understanding of how the results will be fulfilled and how we can take baby intuitive steps towards fulfillment of that result. The science and craft and technique of things are Mahasaraswati's province. The actual science of things, the detailed science of things, the detailed craft of things, the detailed technique of things. For instance, we have theoretical physics. But just because you know theoretical physics does not mean you will be able to deal with actual little things when it comes to applied physics. So this is really hands-on and detailed applied work that we are talking about, whether it is in science or in craft or in technique. It's a bit like, in architecture, one can give all kinds of stories. Oh, the architecture was inspired by so-and-so story and so this thing. But the moment you see and feel the architecture, it's like doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani, right? You see, you have a touch and feel of the space, and then you know how perfect it is, right? We can make all kinds of story in order to make it perfect, but at the end of the day, the actual physical material manifestation of things will make it concrete, will make it real. Now, that is one of the most beautiful things about the body. And this part of the Mother Divine is closest to the body. The thing is, we can lie in our mind, but as we grow on the spiritual path, at least we stop lying in our mind, because we step back and we observe. So lying in the mind slowly decreases, but the major lying really happens in the vital, right? Vital says something and feels something and does something else, and the rest of the story. But the most beautiful part about the body is it does not lie. That's why if there is some disharmony in the system, it shows up in the body. It will just not lie. And we try to cover up, and we have all kinds of things today with Botox and this and that to cover up, what our body is showing. But the body is really just transparent and honest. It does not hide. So it's a bit like if you're trying to work on the vital, you can make up a story whether you've progressed in the vital or not. At the end of the day, you can concord a story and say, no, I have progressed because of so and so reason. But in the body, let's say if you're trying to progress, if you're trying to build a certain stamina, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to do anything with the body, if you're trying to heal in the body, either you have healed or you have not healed. There is nothing like in the middle. So that is where things become very, very concrete. You cannot lie here. Okay, always she holds in her nature, and can give to those whom she has chosen the intimate and the precise knowledge. Now, this is the part of the Mother who gives that precision of knowledge, the subtlety and the patience, the accuracy of intuitive mind and conscious hand, and a discerning eye of the perfect worker. So I will be very honest with you. I am actually not very good with the body, right? I am good with the mind, I'm good with the vital, but my body is the least developed part of being. And about, I think 4 or 5 years ago, I had an aspiration that I want to learn gardening so that I can develop a little bit of a conscious hand. Otherwise, it was a running joke that whatever Divyanshi cooks is a disaster, like that. Yeah, it still is a running joke. It has not changed much, but I think I've made a little bit of progress. Yeah. So I said, Manoj, from whom do I learn gardening? And he recommended an Aurovillian, and I invited that Aurovillian home. So she came. And of course, she embarrassed me quite a bit in terms of the fact that I did not know hands-on work and I wasn't very good with flowers. I could really feel the flowers, but it takes another skill to grow a flower, right? And she was telling me, you talk to the plant, and I was asking, okay, when to water, when not to water, how many times to water, totally from the mind, so that I can set like a rhythm and I can, get it rolling. And she kept giving me such vague answers that it was almost irritating me after a certain point in time. She kept saying things like, the plant will tell you when you have to give water. And I was like, can you please tell me how much water I have to give to this plant which is sitting in a semi-shade, and this is the name of the plant? And she kept telling me things like, no, it's a living creature. You have to talk to the plant. And I am telling her, मुझसे नहीं हो रहा है, you have to basically tell me. And then of course I googled and I figured it out, so I took the advantage of the mind as well, which is the stronger part of being. But then over time I really realized that actually it works like that. A lot of people who cook will tell you, like my mother used to say when I used to ask her, how do you cook this? Andaz se. How much? Andaz se. Everything, how much to put this andaz se. I'm like, what is this andaz se? You tell me the quantity. Otherwise I will mess it up. Now the more and more actually I went into cooking, not myself cooking, but instructing a cook to cook. And I really went into, I want to learn this thing and I want to get into the details. I realized, what this andaz se really means. When you truly become good at something, it is much more of your nature to be in a certain way. It's the same thing that if somebody asks me, what is your system for developing curriculum? And I know, no, it comes intuitively. I know how to do it. It happens like that. But what is that like that, So this is the part of the Mother Divine who gives the knowledge in the hands. And this is a very different kind of a knowledge than if you have knowledge in the mind and you're trying to apply that knowledge into your hand, which is how we often think of the process of manifestation. We think we will know something and then we will implement that thing. But actually, often it does not work like that. It does not work like you have a full knowledge of something and then you're going to apply into life. So many of you, who are sitting on the brink of action, not getting into action because you are going on and on perfecting the knowledge in your head, let me tell you, it is a very different knowledge that acts when you're acting. And the only way to get that knowledge is by actually getting into action. It's like no matter how many YouTube videos on swimming you can watch, ultimately you have to get into the pool and try to swim. And even if you don't have an instructor, believe me, if you're going to try day in and day out, you will learn to swim. The same thing with cooking, the same thing with gardening, and not just with physical things. The same thing in any field of work. It is much more worthy for you to spend 3 years getting a hands-on living applied experience in your field rather than investing 3 years gaining academic knowledge about the subject. So getting early on into action, nowadays it is called into early prototyping and phase fast model, because people realized that, there's years and months of planning, and then or months of, years of trying to gain degree and knowledge, and then trying to put things into action actually does not work. One learns by getting into action, because it's not just here, it's a knowledge in the hand. What is getting developed is an intuitive mind, a discerning eye, a conscious hand at work. And when I say conscious hand and work, not just the hand in terms of cooking and gardening, but also hand in terms of editing and coding and any kind of work. What it means is actually to get hands-on into any kind of work, in any kind of field that you're in, if you want to develop the intuitive capacity to work and make it happen. Okay. This power is strong, tireless, careful, efficient builder, organizer, administrator, technician, artisan, and classifier of the worlds. This power is the strong. So, this is another important thing. We usually only think of Mahakali as the strong one, but actually, she must be extremely strong to be so patient and so persevering to bring in detailed perfection in action. So this power is strong. She is tireless. She will not stop until the time she attains perfection. She is careful. She is precise. She has an eye for detail. She is an efficient builder. So she brings efficiency in details. Mahalakshmi also brings efficiency, but that's an efficiency of a larger sort. This is an efficiency of a detailed sort. Efficient builder, organizer, administrator, technician, artisan, and classifier of the worlds. When she takes up the transformation and new building of the nature, her action is laborious and minute and often seems to our impatience slow and interminable. It's also a bit like on the path of sadhana, it is very difficult to change human nature. Human nature is a bit like the dog's tail, no? You try to straighten it and then again it bends. You think you have solved a problem in yourself, you've overcome something, you've grown in this part of being, and you see that in a deeper way it still exists. In your subconscious it still exists. But this part of the Mother Divine is extremely patient. And that is what is required. On one hand, the rapid accelerated pressure for progress of Mahakali, and on the other hand, the endless patience of Mahasaraswati. That is the key and the crux to bringing progress on the path of sadhana. Otherwise, what we are attempting, had we been attempting a yoga in which one takes sannyas, then also there is a lot of mehnat, a lot of tapasya, but at least one doesn't have to deal with human nature and the dog's tail. Right? If you know, in almost every single language there is a saying, human nature cannot be changed. It's like a dog's tail, right? We so fundamentally believe everything can be changed, but human nature cannot be changed. And here in this yoga, we are attempting to be inwardly a sannyasa and outwardly fully dealing with marriage, family, career, every aspect of life. And that is the battlefield in which we have to transform our human nature. So it's an extremely radical proposition. So obviously it will take time for this transformation to come about. But the only way to do it is, on one hand, to have a very clear aspiration and a will to do it, to make an accelerated progress, and at the same time be ready for the dog's tail, and to have that patience that once you fight with depression, I used to think, I had a very good fight with depression. I felt I overcame it and I had a full resolve it will never come back. But it came back, and it came back in such a massive and in a worse way that I was like, oh my God, after years of being on this path, now I am receiving depression, and that too in this intensity. And I used to think, I will now be able to handle it better because now I know so much better. But I realized how difficult it is to change human nature. So one has to be extremely, extremely patient with oneself on the path. And you cannot do it by beating yourself up. You have to do it with ease, like a mother who's taking care of the child. It's like when a child learns to walk, right? When a child learns to walk, will fall down many times, but the mother is not like, why you're not learning how to walk? You don't treat that child like that, right? That's the same thing with human nature. So you have to be extremely, extremely loving and perseverant. And this love and perseverance really comes from Mahasaraswati. For the will in her works is before that. When she takes up the transformation and building of the nature, her action is laborious and minute and often seems to our impatience slow and interminable. This again, I would like to also highlight, in the beginning, in the path of yoga, the aspiration is very, very high. Very, very high, and your progress is also very, very fast. But ultimately, old human nature kicks back, particularly if you are young and you've made radical decisions in your life, not getting married or choosing a certain career path which is unconventional, and you go very, very fast. But eventually, old needs and old desires start to kick back in and start entering your nature. Right? That is when we often begin to take a detour, because we feel that even after me taking such a big stride, the human nature is, in our experience, just a centimeter different than what it used to be. And I wonder, what is the point? And actually, that is the time to persevere. That is the time to intensify one's aspiration and not to let go of the path of sadhana. So sometimes we become very impatient that, kuch ho to raha nahi hai, kuch ho to raha nahi hai. It's like many times actually Mother Nature is preparing us for the hour of God. And we must allow that preparation and that learning to take place, and we must be extremely patient and enjoy the times where the progress is slow and steady, and not be like, oh, it's going so slow, it's going slow. Because if you're going to hurry into it and you receive that powerful force, maybe you may not be able to handle it. So you need to keep quietly, slowly preparing your instrument for the hour of God, when the divine Shakti comes and begins to manifest through you. It is persistent, integral, and flawless. So it is persistent. That is one of the characteristics. It perseveres. So the second word is, it is integral. So this kind of a perfection is very wholesome in character. There's a beautiful quotation by the mother where she says that perfection is an equilibrium and not a maximum. Perfection is an equilibrium and not a maximum. And this is a very, very life-changing quotations. In my life, I was very much into perfection and idealism. Perfection in the mind. It has to be in this way, and I will not compromise on the ideal. And in that process of, mental idealism, I was just not allowing life energy to flow. Because life energy, whenever it flows in this realm, there will be some kind of a compromise. And that will make me extremely uncomfortable. So I will go back to my comfort zone of mental idealism. And at that time, when I was really struggling with mental idealism, not even knowing that I'm struggling with mental idealism, and just feeling frustrated that why is things are not manifesting, that is when I came across this quotation of the mother where she said that, perfection is not a maximum, it's an equilibrium. And the way I understood it is, In each and every moment, if I can concentrate to the highest part of my being and allow that part of being to manifest, that is good enough. So that is my equilibrium, that is my harmony, that is my balance. And of course, the manifestation will be as perfect as my instruments are developed. Even if I receive a force of the Mother Divine, even if I receive an intuition from Saraswati, still my manifestation is likely to be imperfect till the time my instrument is imperfect. And Mother is very clear that at this stage of manifestation, our instruments are in progressive perfection. So they are not perfect. And it's okay not to be perfect. So perfection is not a maximum or a mental idealism. It is an equilibrium. When you concentrate into your psychic, into the highest part of who you are, and you attempt moment to moment a manifestation through that, that is what makes it integral. That is what makes it wholesome. It is not any application of an ideal. You know, one of the biggest myths about integrality is A plus B plus C is equal to integral. Integrality is not a summation. Many times even in integral education, and I have myself committed this mistake, physical education plus vital education plus mental education plus psychic education is equal to integral education. It does not work like that, because we are not A plus B plus C plus D. It's not like if I get up in the morning, half an hour I do Hatha Yoga, after that half an hour I do pranayam, after that half an hour I do journaling, after that half an hour I do something or the other for different parts of my being, that everything will work out. It does not work like that. It works in the way that moment to moment there has to be an aspiration to get in touch with the soul, to get in touch with the psychic. And when you do that, it will dictate the right rhythm and the right way of developing the instrument at this stage of being. So that is the equilibrium we are talking about. That is the integrality that we are talking about. Actually, integrality is an English word translated from a Sanskrit word called Purnam. And Purnam actually translated will be infinite. It's not even integral, because integral still has a sense of limitedness. Infinity has a sense of unlimitedness. And all one has to do is one has to get in touch with the unlimited, infinite, eternal part of our being. It's like this old story, in which it says in the Upanishads, I want to know that knowing which one knows it all. So all one has to do it is just that, to be in touch with that. That is the secret of perfection. So it is persistent, integral, and flawless. For will in her works is scrupulous, unsleeping, indefatigable. Leaning over us, she notes and touches every little detail, finds out every minute defect, gap, twist, or incompleteness, considers and weighs accurately all that has been done and all that still remains to be done. How beautiful! This is the part of the mother which has immensity of gratitude for all that has been done. Actually, even when you express your appreciation and gratitude, if you can just add this one little characteristic to it, you will notice it makes a huge difference. Whether it is you're expressing your gratitude inside of yourself or outside of yourself, you're appreciating another person. Be specific. What are you grateful for? What do you appreciate? Instead of generically saying, thank you for everything. Many times between husband and wife, between family members, we don't express gratitude. And even if we express gratitude, we say, thank you for everything. But instead of doing that, if you start noticing little details and start appreciating that, because that is when you're taking a note of everything that has been done. So one part of it is to acknowledge little parts of what has been done. And the other is to be in one's inner growth as well, to be very conscious of little things. Mother says that, many times on the path of sadhana, once one has consciously and fully taken up sadhana, the bigger decisions we are still able to take from a deeper part of our being. But when it comes to little details, it's like, yes, I have overcome vanity and pride, but behind that particular little thought pattern, I can still sense some vanity and pride. Maybe in the middle of when I was, let's say, talking to Lakshmi, I exaggerated something just to kind of impress her a little bit. I exaggerated it a little bit. Now that is a little imperfection of nature. So to be very conscious and detailed oriented. Again, this information, many times the reason why we don't get detailed oriented is because then I have so many things to beat myself over. That's not how this information has to be used. This information has to be used in order to progress. Remembering you are not imperfect, you are divine. It's our surface instrumentation which has imperfections, and that is what we are trying to develop. Actually, many times, even at work we see if somebody gives us feedback, right? Or if we give feedback to somebody, and if it's detailed oriented, many times we get defensive instead of taking that feedback in the right spirit. We say, no, I did not do it like this. No, I thought I had done it properly, only you are not able to see it. Or you give some or the other defense like that. So one helpful, and of course, not all feedback is, by the way, coming from the right space. Many times people give feedback out of jealousy. Many times people give feedback out of their own internal reactions. But if it's a genuine feedback, and if you can see there is parts of it which are coming from a genuine inner space, to be able to be detailed oriented and to be able to progress in details and not get defensive. That, no, it is already perfect. No, at the end of the day, it is helping us progress. Nothing is too small or apparently trivial for her attention. Nothing, however impalpable or disguised or latent, can escape her. So nothing is too small or apparently trivial for her attention. Nothing is too small. Every little detail matters. To give you a few examples, it's a funny one, so I'll probably choose this one. I have many such examples coming to my mind. Once we were setting up a dining table for having dinner together. Manoj was cooking and he cooks very fast, so I don't compete with him. I don't cook. I was setting up the table. And I thought, why, wash so many utensils? So I had a kadai and a pressure cooker, and I put that only on the table. Remaining, I, put flowers and I put the plates and I did everything. And after I did all of this, and Manoj, sweetly took the pressure cooker, put that into a bowl and put that back on the table. I said, how does it matter? It's just the two of us. We'll wash less utensils. And he said that, it's not like it'll take you more time. And if you are bringing that perfection, if you're bringing that beauty, then nothing is too small for you to give your attention to. Right? Then don't be lazy. If you're setting up the table, then do it nicely and do it properly and bring that kind of a perfection. Because once you bring that kind of a perfection, then it's actually no longer about the flowers, about the plate, about the knife, about the fork. It's about something else that gets created in the ambience because of that beauty. Right? So nothing is too small. Everything deserves our attention. Another example, again an example of beauty. So one Neilji, who's my mentor, she talked about this thing. She said that, the clothes that we wear can also express our psychic. And I was of the perspective that clothing is unspiritual. very beginner kind of a thinking. This is all materialistic, etc. And eventually, if one grows on the spiritual path, how does it matter what one wears? Or, it doesn't matter. And then she said that, nothing is too small. Even in something like, washing utensil, you can, bring the presence of the divine. Even in the clothes that you wear, you can bring the presence of the divine. Even in brooming the room, you can bring the presence of the divine. That is why Mother says, from the perspective of yoga, no work is big or small. Actually, from the perspective of yoga, your evolution of consciousness, somebody who's probably just doing jhadu katka and another person who's doing massive path-breaking work, but the first person is doing it with consciousness, with concentration, with presence, with consecration, with offering, is actually evolving so much more than the second person who maybe, looking like is doing massive path-breaking, cutting-edge kind of a work. Because all our judgments that this is a small work, this is a big work, all of these are societal and conditional. And in the society also, it's a bit sad that basically we also pay our craftsmen very less, no? And also when we look at the little roadside Indian crafts and we want to haggle and bargain also, bhaiya kam kar do, right? But when it comes to, paying a consultant, we can pay whatever to a consultant. And actually the things that we ought to be valuing, right? We ought to be valuing beauty, art, culture, spirituality. That's where we expect, na. Spirituality, give it for free. Social work, you should do it for free. Oh, craft, you haggle. Bhaiya, come. That person has made a hand-painted thing for you that is priceless. And then, we don't haggle for the other things, right? So that is the detailed orientation, and it's very, very important to value that kind of a detailed orientation. Okay, where was I? Nothing is too small or apparently trivial for her attention. Nothing, however, impalpable or disguised or latent can escape her. So she notices everything. Oh, this has gone wrong, that has gone wrong, and how one can bring in perfection into the very, very details. I remember during Savitri painting in the beginning when we started, at that time, we used to have instructions about the kind of details for our facilitators and our instructors that you wouldn't even imagine that we are working in that kind of a detail. It is almost like, somebody can call me an OCD, but it was really important to create that kind of an experience. In a sense, we would weave a timeline which is having minute to minute what will happen, and minute to minute what has to be done, exactly the kind of Zoom settings one has to choose, exactly what needs to be done in order to create a seamless meditative online experience. So nothing is too small or too trivial. And many times, we say to particularly housewives, or housewives say that about themselves, that I am just a housewife. Right? As if, the entire work of nurturing and growing a whole new generation and giving that new consciousness is just airy, you are bringing an entire new being into this world. It's a work of dedicated, it's like sculpting a new human being in its very details. It's a work which is of a great, great worth. But until and unless we don't find it worthy, the society will also not. Molding and remolding, she labors each part till it has attained its true form, is put in its exact place in the whole, and fulfills its precise purpose. So each thing has to be perfected, but just perfection is not enough. It has to then be put in its exact place in the whole, and that place in the whole has to have a purpose. It's like when you're cooking, people who are really into cooking, sometimes, I'm not into cooking, but I really watch a lot of cooking vlogs and cooking videos. I love to do that so that I can give perfect instructions on how to cook. So I really love some of, these cooking vloggers. They're so peculiar about little things. In the beginning, I used to think, acha, jeera, rai, aise dalna hota hai. Matlab, they're so peculiar. No, it has to be put at this particular juncture of the cooking only. It's not like one just has to put jeera, so in whichever sequence you put it, it's okay. And I used to be, not very conscious about these things at all. If I would go to an Ayurvedic doctor, the Ayurvedic doctor will tell me with so much of precision, this has to be taken, this has to be taken, this has to be taken. And my mind will be like, okay, these 3 things have to be taken. No, I'll mix and match and I'll have it at some point in time during the day. Obviously, I'll not tell the doctor, otherwise she'll give me a nice scolding. But that's what would happen in my mind. Similarly, if somebody would give me a recipe, I somewhat did not take it very seriously, that why do details matter? So I'll be like, okay, these 4 things have to be put, then I'll put these 4 things without paying attention to the sequence. Is it being put at the right time? Is it being put at the right simmer, or is it full? And these are the little details. Who's really into cooking, for that person, these little details matter. It's not just a matter of putting 4 ingredients together and eating. One can still eat, 1 pot, 1 shot. But to really get that perfection, there are these little details that makes a whole lot of difference. In her constant and diligent arrangement and rearrangement of things, her eye is on all needs at once, and the way to meet them, and her intuition knows what is to be chosen, what rejected, successfully determines the right instrument, the right time, the right conditions, and the right process. What a beautiful description. It always used to amaze me that mother. Who is the mother? Right? I'm talking about the mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram. Amongst many things, honestly, she was a very busy professional lady. I mean, she's the mother, she's the divine mother, but she's also extremely busy. She has centers to run across India and the entire world. She's in communication with UNESCO. She's guiding, Indira Gandhi. She is doing all kinds of things. And amidst these very important things, she remembers everybody's birthdays. And some of the seekers, she's giving a special birthday gift to the seeker. And one time I found out, many times, she would draw the caricature of the seeker on the seeker's birthday and give it to the sadhak. It gave me goosebumps. It blew me away, because I could not imagine an ashram where the guru does it for one's disciples. I can imagine, the disciples in admiration of the guru making saris and drawing and offering things to the mother. And here mother is paying attention. It almost amazed me how she took care of Sri Aurobindo's meals. I'm like, you're supposed to be so busy. You have better things to do. You have not better things to do. You have so many things to do. And she really took care of the cleanliness in Sri Aurobindo's room, the food that Sri Aurobindo was eating, whether he's getting at the right time or not, the soup that he's drinking, and because she was putting in consciousness into the details, and consciousness travels, which is why we have Sri Aurobindo's relics, which is why when we receive a blessing card from the mother, it's not just a piece of paper, it is her consciousness that she's put into that thing. It's like when we receive an object that she's used it with consciousness, and we receive that consciousness, no? So yes, and then in the ashram, it almost always amazed me how she picked up, she chose the right person for the right work. I particularly remember this one time where this IS officer sort of joined the ashram. Now, IS officers, what are they good at? They're good at administration, right? They are good at multiple management. They're very generalists, and they can really administer and manage. And, he gets admitted to the ashram. Of course, there are many administrative requirements in the ashram, and he gets the toilet cleaning duty. And, you would imagine that, this guy of such a high capacity would be given some high-end, cutting-edge administrative role. And the guy get the toilet cleaning duty. But the reason why, and she explains it, it was required for him to develop humility, to be able to be a receptive instrument at work. So the way she chose each person to do the right thing, even the sadhak who's cleaning Sri Aurobindo's room, a highly developed poet and intellect, is doing a simple work of cleaning the room. If we think from a human mind, what will we think? A person who is such a big artist shouldn't waste time cleaning a room. But because the person is of a high intellect, a high aesthetic artistic capacity and a high consciousness, it is that person only who can bring that consciousness into matter and is worthy of cleaning Sri Aurobindo's room. So how she selected each person for the right work, and also how she allocated money in its very details. One example that comes to my mind is that example where, in ashram there is prosperity. And there were two requests for prosperity. One person wanted a matchbox, another person wanted a piano, and the ashram as a whole was going through a financial crunch, so there were lack of funds. And the person who was auditing said yes for matchbox, said no for piano. And mother said, no, buy the piano, don't give the matchbox. Because matchbox this person will waste, and this other person who's demanding a piano will make good use of the piano for the development of the self. Now think about, you're facing a financial crunch, you're a parent, right? If the child asks for a matchbox, what will you do? You'll give it. It's a 1 rupee thing. How does it matter? But if the child asks for a piano, what will you do? You will say no. But what did she do? She did the exact opposite. Because for her, more than the financial reality of things, the real reality of things, which is the reality in terms of what will help the most for the development of consciousness, mattered more. So she chooses the right thing, the right instrument at the right time, the right condition, the right process. Carelessness and negligence and indolence she abhors. All scamped and hasty and shuffling work, all clumsiness, all approximate and misfire, all false adaptation. That's another thing. So one, of course, she does not like carelessness and laziness, but what she abhors even more is when it is a misuse of the instrument and the faculties and leaving of things undone. Not finishing things or half done. That is offensive to her and foreign to her temperament. For her, it is important to bring a closure to things that one has started and to bring a closure with a sense of perfection. And if one is doing something, one has to do it for its right purpose, not to misuse things. That is also something that she's not. It's like, actually in the world there's a lot of misuse of art. It's a misuse of a lot of things. There's also misuse of money. So she does not only want a perfect usage of money, but she wants the right usage of money also. When her work is finished, nothing has been forgotten, no part has been misplaced or omitted or left in a faulty condition. All is solid, accurate, complete and admirable. Really reminds me of a New Dawn movie. It really amazed me, the fact that in an age of AI, they went for hand-painted paintings. And, I was almost getting frustrated a little bit with Manoj because I was like, your movie was supposed to launch on 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. You're 1 year late. But these guys kept on perfecting and perfecting and perfecting and perfecting till the movie was really solid, accurate, complete and admirable. So nothing short of a perfect perfection satisfies her, and she is ready to face an eternity of toil if that is needed for the fullness of her creation. So even if it requires an eternity, nowadays we want all the crash course. We want to learn Kathak in 7 days, not 7 years. No, everybody wants a crash course into things. Learn now, immediately. But it takes time to have an integral, flawless progress, and one has to be patient. So yes, Nothing short of a perfect perfection satisfies her. She is ready to face an eternity of toil if that is needed for the fullness of her creation. Therefore, of all the powers of the mother, she is the most long-suffering with man and his 1,000 imperfections. What a compassion of the Mother Divine that, in spite of the fact that maybe we are still creating patterns in our life that date back to 3 lifetimes, which if we, by the way, it's a very good thing that we don't know what happened in our past births. If we knew all that we have done and the fact that today also we are doing the same, we would have given up on ourselves. She knows it and she's still not giving up on us. So I feel really like hats off to her. The fact that she knows everything that we've done and still we continue to do it, and still we don't learn, and she's still long suffering with us. Kind, smiling, close and helpful, not easily turned away or discouraged. Insistent even after repeated failure, her hand sustains our every step on condition that we are single in our will and straightforward and sincere. So she will not give up on us even as we give up on ourselves. And that is one thing that we must always remember when we are going through tough times. Mother will never give up on us. So even after repeated failure, she is insistent. There's only one condition. We must be straightforward and sincere. We must be straightforward and sincere and honest in our relationship with her. For a double mind, she will not tolerate, and her revealing irony is merciless to drama and histrionics and self-deceit and pretense. This is the only condition of Mahasaraswati, and you can really underline this line because this is the most important part of the write-up that we read out. The only condition from our end which is required is a sincere, straightforward will. Problem arises when we say we want to progress but we don't want to progress. That is when we are not straightforward, when we are getting convoluted, when we are using all kinds of drama to say that, we want to progress but we are not really genuine. It is only then that, she takes a little bit of distance. Otherwise, she is the most long-suffering of the mothers, of the powers of the mother, and in spite of our repeated failures, mistakes, imperfections, she is immensely patient with us. A mother to our wants, a friend in our difficulties, a persistent and tranquil counselor and mentor, chasing away with radiant smile the clouds of gloom and fretfulness and depression, reminding always of the ever-present help, pointing to the eternal sunshine. She is firm, quiet, persevering in the deep and continuous urge that drives us towards the integrality of the higher nature. A mother to our wants, a friend in our difficulties, and this is another important point. She is a friend in our difficulties. This is the part of the mother, even though she is that imperial queen who's sitting on the throne, she comes to us in the form of a friend. Now that's important thing. Just because mother comes to us in the form of a friend, we shouldn't take her for granted and for a ride, yeah? So she comes, she's a friend in our difficulties. A persistent and tranquil counselor and mentor. It's like, how a counselor, it takes immense amount of patience to be a counselor. And I must give hats off to, Pooja, Palak. These are incredibly patient women. And I find it a little difficult, to be honest, because as a counselor, you have to say the same thing again and again. It's like, the person will come up with the same anxiety again, and you have to be like, it's okay, no worries, and you have to keep on nurturing. So this is really the mother who's extremely patient, which is why, if you are wanting to be a counselor, you must have some part of Mahasaraswati inside of you. Otherwise, you will find it very difficult, yeah? Okay. A persistent and tranquil counselor and mentor, chasing away with her radiant smile the clouds of gloom and fretfulness and depression, reminding always of the ever-present help, pointing to the eternal sunshine, she is firm, quiet, persevering in the deep and continuous urge that drives us towards the integrality of the higher nature. All the work of other powers, now this is also very important, you can underline the last line also. All the work of the other powers leans on her for its completeness. The completeness of manifestation absolutely relies on Mahasaraswati. Without her, it cannot happen. For she assures the material foundation, elaborates the stuff of details, and erects and rivets the armor of the structure. For she assures the material foundation of the spiritual truth, elaborates the stuff of detail. She tells us exactly how to manifest the divine presence in the details of life, and erects and rivets the armor of the structure, the container that is required for the manifestation of the divine force in nature. I hope you found the video to be useful. If you would like to continue your journey with us, if you would like to help us support you in your journey, click on the link below and join us for a 2.5-hour signature masterclass called the Awakening Karma Yogi Workshop, where we run you through the fundamental stages of awakening to become a Karma Yogi, to be peaceful inside and successful outside. We talk about Swabhava, our true nature, and Swadharma, our soul's purpose, which are the building blocks of a life affirming, not a life negating spirituality. So if you found this video to be useful, click on the link below and I shall see you at the workshop.